Welcome to Aliens Shadowware. Sci-fi thrives and humanity survives. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a gripping tale from the edge of the unknown where humans stand tall, no matter the darkness. The strange discovery *, the cargo ship Hopper 12, floated in silence between asteroid belts. Carrying one tired man and a lot of mining equipment, Jared had spent the last 2 weeks cleaning the ore tanks, repairing faulty circuits, and arguing with the food dispenser that refused to make proper coffee. Life on a solo mining ship was boring, quiet, and lonely. But Jared liked it that way. That day, he spotted a strange signal on the long-range scanner. It was weak, like a lost signal, bouncing through empty space. Curious, he turned his ship and followed it until he found something floating in the dark. A small escape pod, half covered in frozen dust, spinning slowly, with no beacon or ID mark. He pulled it aboard, expecting salvage, maybe old tech or parts to trade later. But when he opened the pod, he froze. Inside was a round, furry creature, about the size of a large dog. It had big blue eyes, soft black fur, and a strange warmth that filled the cold air around it. Jared stared, unsure if it was dead or alive. Then it blinked. He jumped back and hit his head on the pod door, cursing as he rubbed the sore spot. The creature tilted its head and gave a soft, squeaky sound, like a sleepy chirp mixed with a cat's purr. "Okay, not dead," Jared muttered, trying to stay calm as he scanned it with a handheld reader. No dangerous energy, no toxins, no tech signals, and no ID chip, just a strange life form. It didn't try to attack, just crawled closer and rested its head on his boot. Jared was not an animal guy, but this thing seemed harmless. He brought it inside the living area, set a blanket on the floor, and gave it some water. It drank slowly, then curled into a ball and started snoring softly. Jared watched it for a moment and went back to his pilot chair and sighed. "Well, I guess I have a pet now," he said to the empty room. Days passed. The creature, he called it Nub, followed him everywhere. It liked to sit near the engine room, where it was warm, and hum strange little tunes. Sometimes it tapped on the walls like it was listening to something deeper inside the ship. It never caused trouble, never made messes, and slept peacefully every night. Jared found himself talking to Nub like an old friend. He told it about Earth, about the mining company that underpaid him, and how lonely space could be. He laughed when Nub sneezed and fell over, or when it tried to chase his laser pointer. Then, one night, everything changed. Jared was asleep in his bunk when the lights flickered. He sat up, confused, as the ship shook slightly like something heavy had landed. An alarm flashed on the control screen. Power spike in the medbay. He grabbed his jacket and ran, thinking Nub had knocked something over again. But when he opened the medbay door, his breath caught. The creature was gone. In its place stood a tall, glowing figure with deep blue skin, silver-white hair, and a long, thin tail. She was wearing nothing but a layer of thin, glowing fabric that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were the same bright blue, wide, and watching him carefully. Jared backed up, nearly falling. The woman raised her hand slowly, then spoke in a soft, clear voice. "Please don't be afraid." "Jared," she said, "I mean no harm." He blinked hard. "How do you know my name?" he asked, heart pounding. "I've been listening, learning, and healing," she said. "My pod was damaged, my body broken." Jared stared in disbelief. "You're Nub?" She nodded. "My real name cannot be said in your language," she explained. "But Nub is fine." He rubbed his face, unsure if this was a dream. "You were a furry creature just yesterday," he said. "I used a survival form," she replied, "until I could return to this one." The room was silent for a long time. Only the quiet hum of the ship filled the air. Jared tried to speak, then laughed nervously. "This is insane," he whispered. "I rescued a dog, and now there's a woman." She tilted her head and gave a small smile. "Not just a woman, Jared," she said. "A protector." Before he could ask what that meant, the lights flickered again. A new signal flashed on the ship's radar. Multiple ships approaching fast, and none of them were human. The visitors in the dark. The radar kept blinking red, its soft beeping rising faster and louder as the ships drew closer. Jared stared at the screen, his hands frozen above the controls. Outside, space looked calm, but his heart raced like a warning drum in his chest. Nub, now standing tall and glowing softly in the med base, stepped beside him without a sound. "They found me," she whispered, her voice calm but her eyes sharp with tension. "Who?" Jared asked, though he already felt the answer deep in his gut. "They are called the HFY," she replied. "Hunters of lost secrets, enemies of peace." Jared glanced back at the screen. 3 ships, sleek and fast. Moving with purpose, he flipped a switch and powered the defensive shield. Something he'd never used before. His mining ship wasn't built for battle. Just cargo, hauling, and/or storage. It could barely survive a rock storm. He had no idea how to face alien hunters. Nub moved her hands in the air, creating a thin trail of glowing light. Symbols floated and spun, and Jared realized she was doing something to the ship's systems. "What are you doing?" he asked, watching the strange energy wrap around his control board. "I am linking my memory to your ship," she said, "giving it knowledge from my people." "Wait, what kind of knowledge?" Jared asked, blinking as the lights flickered. Again, she looked at him, serious and calm. "Enough to make this ship move like it was built for war." Outside, the HFY ships slowed, scanning him like a trapped animal. One of them sent a signal, a loud, cold message that echoed through his speakers. "Surrender the escaped unit." The voice said, "or be destroyed." Jared opened his mouth to reply, but Nub placed a hand on his arm. "They won't listen," she said. "They never do." The floor vibrated gently beneath their feet as the ship's engines adjusted on their own. Screens lit up with new interfaces, glowing symbols that Jared didn't recognize but somehow understood. He gripped the controls, feeling power surge through a ship that had never moved this fast before. The first HFY ship fired a warning shot, missing on purpose, but close enough to shake the hull. Jared gritted his teeth and shouted, "Not today." As he punched the throttle forward, the Hopper 12 moved like a ghost, slipping past the enemy's flank and diving into the asteroid belt. The HFY followed, their sleek ships darting between rocks like wolves chasing prey. Jared swerved left, then right, barely avoiding a spinning asteroid the size of a house. "Tell me where to go," he yelled. "Trust the ship now," Nub said, her hands glowing as she guided the new systems. The mining ship suddenly dropped low. Beneath a thick cluster of space rocks, the HFY hesitated, not used to their prey fighting back. Jared flipped a hidden switch and fired a sonic burst from a new cannon he didn't even know existed. The sound wave cracked through space, hitting one enemy ship hard and sending it spinning. Jared laughed out loud, his fear turning into wild adrenaline. "You weren't kidding. This is war mode," he said, but Nub didn't smile. "They will not stop," she said. That one was the weakest. Another blast shook their rear thrusters. Direct hit. Warning lights flashed across the board, and the engine heat rose fast. Jared knew they couldn't take too many more. "We have to hide," he said, "or we won't make it." "There's a system not far," Nub replied. "It has a moon with dense cover." Jared changed course, setting coordinates for the nearest moon with volcanic canyons, as the HFY regrouped and followed. Nub reached out again and placed her hand on the screen. Suddenly, The stars shifted, the ship bent light around itself like a shadow slipping through cracks. They won't see us for a while, she said, breathing slowly, but it won't last long. The Hopper 12 entered the moon's orbit, slipping into the dark side behind jagged cliffs. Jared landed hard, bouncing once before settling into a deep valley filled with glowing rocks. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Only the hum of cooling engines and the soft pulse of Nub's light broke the stillness. Jared leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. I just wanted to mine some rocks, he said. Exhausted, now I'm running from space assassins with a glowing alien lady. Nub stood by the viewport, staring into the darkness outside. You didn't have to help me, she said quietly. I didn't plan to, he replied. Then looked at her, but I'm glad I did, far above. The Kisari ships circled the moon like vultures, waiting for a sign of movement inside the valley. Jared and Nub prepared for whatever came next. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and far from home, but no longer alone. Asterisk. The secret she carries asterisk inside the rocky canyon. The stars above seemed far away and silent. Jared leaned against the ship wall, still catching his breath, while Nub stood barefoot on the cold metal floor. She had not spoken for minutes, her eyes fixed on a glowing stone she held in her hand. The stone pulsed with soft blue light, like a heartbeat, and Jared knew it wasn't just a rock. What is that? He asked, pointing at the stone. Nub didn't look up. This is what they want, she said quietly. This is why they followed me. Jared stepped closer, watching the strange light move across her fingers. It felt warm, even from where he stood. He reached toward it, but she pulled it back gently. This can't fall into their hands, she said, not ever. Jared sat down on a crate and rubbed his forehead. All right, he said slowly. Let's pretend I know what you're talking about. What is that thing? A power source? A weapon? Nub turned her eyes to him, calm, clear, and serious. It's a living memory, she said. A record of an ancient promise. Hidden inside light. Jared blinked. I don't know what that means, he admitted. But I'm guessing it's important. She nodded, holding the stone to her chest. My people were the guardians of lost knowledge. She said, we were created to remember what others wanted to forget. Jared looked at her carefully. You mean, like history? Secrets? She knelt beside him, the blue glow reflecting on her face. Yes, she said. But not just written things, emotions, events, songs, wars, love, pain. Jared felt a strange chill, even though the ship was warm. So this stone has a memory inside it. It has thousands, she said, but one of them is the reason they chase me. Jared stood slowly and started pacing. You said they're called the Kisari, he said. What do they want with memory? They want to erase it, she answered, so they can shape new lies without the truth getting in the way. He stopped walking and stared at her. You're saying this little glowing thing could destroy their whole plan? If shared, she said, it would reveal who they really are, what they've done, and what they still plan to do. Jared let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. Well, no pressure, he muttered. Just the truth of the universe hiding in my ship. Nub stood up and placed the glowing stone into a round slot in her palm. It sank into her skin like water, vanishing without a trace. Jared's eyes widened. Did it just go inside you? Yes, she said softly. That is how we protect what matters. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the hull. Both turned at once. Alarms flashing silently in red. Motion detected something was crawling across the roof of the ship. There? Here, Nub whispered. Jared grabbed his tool belt and pulled out a metal rod that sparked at the tip. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. You said they couldn't see us, he hissed. They found our energy trail, she replied, and they won't wait this time. Metal scraped above them, followed by the hiss of sealed doors opening. Jared ran toward the cockpit. But Nub grabbed his arm. "Let me speak first," she said. "They recognize my voice." Jared hesitated, then nodded. She stepped forward. Hands raised, as the ship's ramp unlocked and lowered. A dark figure stepped through the opening, tall, thin, and wrapped in silver armor. Its face was covered, but two red eyes glowed through the mask. More followed behind it. Silent and armed, the lead figure stopped and stared at Nub. "Return what is ours," it said in a hollow voice. Nub took one step forward. "It was never yours," she said. "It belongs to the ones who still believe in truth." The red eyes narrowed. "You are broken," the creature said. "Your form is weak, your kind forgotten." Jared clenched his fists, ready to jump in. But Nub's voice remained steady. "Maybe," she said, "but even forgotten voices echo forever." The creature raised a weapon, but before it could fire, the ship's console lit up. Behind Jared, a strange hum filled the air, deep and full of music. Nub's body began to glow brighter, her skin pulsing with the rhythm. She stepped forward, and the air shimmered like heat above a flame. The Kyocera hesitated as their masks cracked, sparks flying from their armor. Jared realized the memory was doing something, sending a signal. Broadcasting across the ship, Nub was no longer just speaking, she was releasing the truth. The Kyocera backed away, their armor breaking apart, voices scrambling through static. "We must retreat," one of them cried. "The memory is live." They fled into the canyon, leaving behind smoking footprints on the ramp. Silence returned, heavy and thick, broken only by Nub's soft voice. "It has begun," she said. Jared looked at her, still glowing and steady. "What did you just do?" he asked. "I gave them a piece of what they tried to bury," she said. "Now others will hear it too." Outside, hidden satellites blinked awake, catching the signal and spreading it through the stars. The truth was out hand. Nothing would stop it now. Asterisk, the planet of silence. Asterisk, the stars looked different now. Jared stood at the edge of a ruined cliff, watching 3 moons rise above a dead planet. The surface was dry and cracked, the air thin and silent like an abandoned graveyard. They had landed there 2 days ago, hiding from the Kyocera after Nub's signal went galaxy-wide. The place was not marked on any human chart. No mining companies, no research teams, no probes, just an empty name in a forgotten system adorned for. Nub said her people once lived here before the silence came. Jared didn't ask what silence meant. He could feel it in the air. No birds, no wind, no sound at all, like the planet was holding its breath. She walked ahead of him, her bare feet never making a sound on the dusty ground. Her glow had faded since the signal, but her eyes remained sharp. They were looking for something that would help her memory survive what came next. "This world is a vault," Nub said. Kneeling beside a jagged stone, it was built to hold memories long before the Kyocera turned them into weapons. Jared looked around at the dry canyons and broken towers. "Looks more like a tomb," he said quietly. "It became one," she replied. Brushing dirt away from the stone surface, he stepped closer and saw old symbols, carved deep into the rock. The writing shimmered faintly, like it had been waiting to be seen again. "It will open if I speak the right name," Nub said. "What name?" Jared asked. She turned toward him, a strange calm in her voice. "My true name," she said. "The one I gave up to become Nub." Jared stared, unsure what to say. "Will it hurt?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "It already does." She placed both hands on the stone and closed her eyes. Her voice rang out, not loud, but deep and full of old power. The symbols lit up, glowing blue, then white, then vanished into the stone. The ground shook gently as the earth split open, revealing stairs made of light. Jared followed her without hesitation, stepping into the depths of the planet below. A chamber pulsed with ancient energy. Walls of crystal reflected their faces back at them, stretching time and memory. In the center stood a pillar. Floating above a circle of gold rings, it held a single orb, clear, silent, and spinning slowly. "This is the core," Nub said. "The heart of my people's memory." Jared walked around, it awestruck. "It's beautiful," he said. "But what does it do?" "It listens," she said, "and it chooses who can carry the next memory." He turned sharply. "You mean someone else has to carry it now?" "Yes," she said. "The memory inside me is fading. It cannot survive another burst." Jared's throat tightened. "So you brought me here to hand it over?" "No," she said gently. "I brought you here so it could choose." Jared stepped back as the orb spun faster, releasing soft waves of sound. Memories flowed through the chamber. Laughter, war, birth, betrayal. He saw flashes of worlds he'd never visited, skies he'd never flown under. It was like time itself opened for a breath. The orb slowed and dimmed. Nub walked toward it and placed her hand gently on its surface. "It will choose now," she said. The chamber fell still. The orb turned once more, then pulsed bright and released a thread of light. It floated straight to Jared. He didn't move, afraid to breathe. The light touched his chest, and he gasped, feeling everything. Grief, hope, beauty, death, truth, all crashing through his soul like a river without end. Nub watched with quiet pride. "The core trusts you," she said. "You are now a part of its song." Jared dropped to one knee, overwhelmed. "It's too much," he whispered. "I'm just a miner." "No," she said, kneeling beside him. "You're more than that now." The light faded, sinking into his skin. He looked at his hands. Glowing softly with new strength, he felt different, older, sharper. Like the universe had left its fingerprint on him. Suddenly, a warning echoed through the chamber. Incoming transmission from orbit. Jared tapped his wrist console and saw the signal. The KSRE had followed them again. They were not giving up. Not after what was released. Jared stood up, his eyes hard. "I guess we fight again," he said. "No," Nub said, standing tall beside him. "This time, we end it." They turned and walked back up the glowing stairs. Side by side, above them, the stars were no longer silent. They were watching, waiting, listening, and so was the galaxy. The message in his blood, *. Jared didn't sleep that night. His mind burned with visions, strange voices, forgotten stars, alien music rising through silence. Each time he closed his eyes, he felt the orb inside him shift, like it was whispering ancient stories in a language he didn't know. Nub sat nearby, her body glowing faintly in the dark room of the ship, watching him without saying a word. "The memory is settling," she said softly. "It's learning your shape." Jared stared at his hands. His veins glowed faint blue now, only slightly, like distant lightning under skin. "What happens if I can't hold it?" he asked. "You will," Nub said. "The core would not have chosen you otherwise." He stood up and walked to the control panel. The screen showed the 3 KSRE ships still orbiting above Aderon 4. "They're waiting," he muttered. "Like wolves outside a cabin, they fear what you carry," Nub said. "They will try to destroy you before it spreads." He pressed a button and zoomed in on the enemy ships. "They don't know I've changed," he said. "Maybe we can use that." Nub stepped beside him, her eyes calm and sure. "There is a way," she said, "but it will require more than running." Jared turned to her. "I'm listening." She placed her hand on his chest, where the memory now rested. "The signal you carry is not just information," she said. It is alive, and it can be shared. His brow furrowed. You mean? I can give it to someone else. Yes, she nodded. If you let it speak through your blood. Jared backed away slightly. Wait through my blood. He said, That sounds painful. It's not pain, Nub said. It's opening before he could ask more. The ship shook violently. A blast struck near the hull, strong enough to knock them off their feet. They're moving in, Jared said, grabbing the side rail. We don't have time for more plans. Nub stood and raised both arms. I'll activate the shield, prepare the signal beacon. Jared ran to the lower deck, where the signal core was hidden under floor panels. He pulled the cables, linked the power cells, felt the hum of the ancient memory rise again inside him. The orb inside his chest pulsed harder. Like it sensed the danger above, the ship's outer lights turned golden, flickering as the shield came online. Outside, the Caesari ships moved into a tight attack pattern. Their leader sent another message. Cold and sharp, you will not escape. This time, the voice said, surrender the carrier or burn. Jared tapped the mic and spoke clearly. Come and take it, they said. If you think you can. Then he grabbed a small blade from the emergency kit and looked at his arm. Are you sure this will work? He asked. Nub placed her hand over his. You're not just sharing blood, she said. You're releasing truth. Jared cut a small line across his wrist, and the blue light from his veins poured out like mist. He pressed his hand against the signal beacon, and the mist flowed into the cables like breath. The whole ship lit up, each wall covered in waves of glowing symbols. Outside, the enemy ships paused. One of them tried to jam the signal, but the waves cut through the interference. Like a knife through paper, the truth was free again. Only this time it had Jared's voice inside it. The story of what he saw, what he learned. What they tried to erase flew across the stars like fire on dry grass. Every satellite, every receiver, every listening ear in 100 systems picked it up. People saw the war crimes, the betrayals, the stolen worlds. They heard Nub's voice and Jared's courage, woven together in a single wave of memory. One of the Caesari ships turned away, its crew overwhelmed by the signal. Another began to spark, systems failing as the truth burned through their lies. Only one remained, the leader. It charged directly at Jared's ship, weapons locked and ready to strike. We end this now, Jared said. Standing at the pilot's seat, together, Nub added, her light burning bright again as the enemy fired. Jared lifted the ship straight into the beam, letting the signal wrap around the hull. The blast hit, but it didn't burn. The memory shield absorbed it, reflecting the force back toward the attacker. The enemy ship cracked, split, and exploded above the canyon. A final scream lost in static. Jared landed the ship gently, breathing hard, his body glowing brighter than ever. It worked, he said, smiling through sweat. We did it. Nub walked to him, eyes wide with respect. No, she said softly. You did it? The ship sat quiet again, wrapped in golden silence. But the galaxy outside was no longer the same. The memory was loose, and it carried Jared's name now. Asterisk, the trial of the stars. Asterisk, a silver transmission pod hovered outside the ship, glowing like a pearl against the stars. It came from the edge of neutral space, marked with the seal of the Galactic Council sign. Few dared to fake. Jared stared at it through the cockpit window, unsure whether to open the line or run. Nub stood beside him, her light softer now, hands folded as if waiting for something ancient to return. They heard your message, she said quietly, and now they want judgment. Judgment? Jared asked, his voice dry. I thought they were just politicians. She shook her head. They are listeners before they are rulers, she said. And what you shared has shaken their silence. The pod blinked again. Waiting, Jared pressed. The green signal switch. And the voice that answered was not human. "We request your presence at the council spire." The voice said, calm and slow, "Come alone. And the truth will walk beside you." Jared looked at Nub. They said, "Alone." She nodded. "But you won't be," she said. "Not really." They landed the Hopper 12 on a council moon called Valzar, a glowing marble in orbit around a dying gas giant. Jared stepped out alone, wearing a plain black suit and a glowing band around his wrist, the beacon tied to the memory inside him. He walked through crystal corridors, past guards who didn't speak, and windows that showed entire galaxies spinning far below, at the heart of the spire. He stood in a round chamber, lit by floating light orbs. 12 figures sat above him in tall seats, their faces hidden behind shimmering veils of their own traditions. "You carry the untold truth of the Valari memory core," one of them said, their voice rippling like water. "Do you understand what this means?" Jared nodded slowly. "I understand it's dangerous," he said, "and I understand it's real." Another voice spoke harsher, sharp like ice breaking. "Do you understand that if your message is false, your life ends here?" Jared took a breath. "It's not false," he said. "I've seen what the Khazari buried, what Nub carried, and what nearly died with her." The council chamber dimmed, and the floor beneath him glowed. A thin beam connected to the orb inside his chest, and the air filled with memory. Images bloomed around them, cracked cities, stolen planets, the cries of forgotten species wiped clean from records. Then Nub's voice played, calm and proud, sharing the promise of her people. Guardians of memory. The council remained silent for a long time, even through their veils. Jared could feel their discomfort, the weight of truth cracking old rules. "You are not of the Valari," a counselor finally said, "yet you carry their fire." "I didn't ask for it," Jared said, "but I won't give it up either." A pause. "Then we ask you now, what do you seek?" Jared lifted his head. "Justice," he said, "not just for Nub, but for everyone the Khazari tried to erase." Another counselor leaned forward, its veils shimmering gold. "Justice begins with recognition," they said. "The Khazari deny nothing because nothing has reached their worlds." Jared frowned. "Then let it reach them," he said. "Send the signal again. Make it law. Make it history." The chamber fell silent. The council had not moved, but something in the air shifted like a storm preparing to speak. "The council will vote," said the lead voice. "If you are found true, the Khazari shall be called to answer." And then they were gone. The lights faded, the seats empty, and Jared stood alone in the great hollow room. He left the spire in silence, walking slowly beneath skies filled with more stars than he could name. Nub waited for him at the edge of the landing bay, her hands glowing gently, eyes fixed on him like he was no longer just Jared. "What did they say?" she asked. "They're voting," he said. "It's in their hands now." Nub placed a hand over his heart. "No," she whispered. "It's in yours." That night, as the ship floated over Valzar's quiet sky, Jared felt the memory inside him stir again. He closed his eyes and listened. It didn't speak in words. Not anymore. It sang a song of sorrow and fire, of loss and truth, of one man who never meant to be a hero, and yet became something more and far beyond, on the edge of space. The Khazari homeworld began to flicker with unrest as the signal reached their streets. The lie was breaking, and judgment was coming. The rise of the remembered asterisk, the sky over Vals, turned red as the council made their choice. Towers lit up across the moon, signaling a verdict that hadn't been passed in 1,000 years. Ships lifted from hangars like silent birds, not for war but for witness. The truth Jared had carried would now be delivered in full view of every Allied system, in the command bay of Hopper 12. Jared stood in silence, gripping the edge of the console, He wore a silver sash given to him by the council, a symbol of his duty as truth-bearer. Nub stood behind him, her lights stronger than ever, glowing like a second sun inside the ship. They chose to believe. Jared said softly, "Now we show them what belief really means." Across space, the signals spread again, richer, deeper, laced with new memory. It carried not just history, but hope, wrapped in Jared's voice and Nub's strength, the Volari memory. Once buried in silence, now danced across stars. But not everyone welcomed it. The KSRE homeworld darkened its skies, cutting off transmissions, locking cities, grounding transport. Their leaders called the signal a lie, a trick, a weapon from the forgotten. But it was too late in every marketplace. Children stopped to listen. In every school, the images of truth lit up walls like fire, even in their war halls. Commanders fell quiet, watching their hidden past unravel. One brave KSRE citizen, gray-skinned and ancient, stepped forward on a live broadcast. "I was there when we burned the Volari," she said, "and I can't forget what we did." Her words shattered the wall of silence. Others joined her, pilots, builders, teachers, speaking what they were once too afraid to admit. They remembered. And remembering made them rise. On Valzair, the council called Jared back to the spire. This time he was not alone. Across the floor walked not just Nub, but others, Volari survivors, long hidden. Their eyes filled with fire. "You are no longer the last," one counselor said to Nub. "Your people are heard again." The oldest among the council stood and removed their veil. A golden face, wrinkled and wise, looked directly at Jared. "You have carried more than memory," they said. "You carried the right to begin again." Jared bowed slightly, unsure how to respond. "I just tried not to die," he said quietly. "The rest kind of happened." Nub smiled at him, her voice warm. "You lived, Jared," she said. "And you chose to care. That is always where change begins." The council chamber opened its upper walls, revealing the stars to all below. From every direction, ships approached, not for battle, but to witness the return of the Volari. Their memory, once almost lost, was now being planted like a seed in every system, not as a weapon, but as a warning, a reminder, and a promise. Jared stood with Nub at the edge of the spire, the wind rising around them like breath. She reached for his hand, her fingers warm, her voice soft. "You gave me more than survival," she said. "You gave me a future." He looked at her, eyes steady. "And you gave me a reason to fight," he said, "not for credits or fuel, but for something that matters." Ships flew overhead, casting long shadows on the marble ground. Children below released glowing kites into the sky, each one shaped like a star. The galaxy had not changed overnight, but it had shifted. People were no longer blind, and the silence was no longer safe. The truth had returned, and with it came voices that refused to vanish again. Jared turned toward the council platform one last time. "What happens now?" he asked. The lead counselor stepped forward, robe trailing light. "Now," they said. "Now you lead." Jared blinked. "Me. You carry the memory." They said, "You will guide how it grows." Jared looked out across the world, past moons, past orbit, into the black and brilliant sky. He was no longer just a miner, or a man with a strange pet. He was a keeper of truth, a symbol of what happens when one person decides to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. He turned to Nub, her light as steady as ever. "Where do we go first?" he asked. She smiled. "Wherever voices are still afraid to speak." And with that, the Hopper 12 rose again, no longer just a mining ship, but a vessel of memory, of courage, of light, as stars passed by the window and new systems came in too. View Jared understood one thing clearly at last. Remembering was not the end. It was only the beginning.